I don't care what his ticket says. That seat is mine." The woman's voice cut through the cabin like a blade, sharp and loud enough to turn heads. She didn't even glance at the man standing beside her. She just waved a manicured hand at the flight attendant like she was swatting a fly. "He's making me uncomfortable. Please, have him removed." The man didn't raise his voice, didn't argue, just stood there, tall and composed, a single eyebrow lifting. Someone in row 3 whispered, "What's going on?" Someone else was already recording. "Tell us where you're watching from, because in 3 minutes, 4 airports were about to cut ties." Just 3 minutes earlier, Dr. Everett Langston had stepped onto the plane like he always did. Quiet, focused, with the kind of presence that didn't need introduction. He didn't need applause. He built aircrafts that didn't fall out of the sky. He adjusted the cuff of his gray tailored suit, brushed a speck of lint from his sleeve, and made his way down the first-class aisle of Regalis Airways Flight 2069, Paris to Zurich. His seat was 2A, always 2A. But when he got there, someone was already occupying the space. Not a person, just a $32,000 Hermes Birkin bag in glistening crocodile leather spread across the seat like a placeholder for entitlement itself. The woman in 2B, Blair Wyndham, didn't look up. She sipped her champagne, scrolling her phone lazily, one leg crossed over the other. Everett paused. He wasn't confused. He wasn't lost. He had taken this flight 67 times in the past 2 years. Still, he gave her the benefit of the doubt. "Excuse me," he said, voice low and composed. "This is 2A. I believe that's my seat." Blair looked up then, slowly, like she was being asked for a favor she had no intention of granting. Her sunglasses didn't move, but her mouth curled, just slightly. "Oh," she said. "That's funny. You must be confused." Her voice was smooth, a practiced mix of amusement and condescension. She tilted her head. "You might want to check again. This cabin's for premier guests only." Everett nodded once. "Yes, that's correct." He slipped his boarding pass from his pocket. Seat 2A. Langston, Everett. Platinum priority. Global access. She didn't look at the pass. Instead, she laid her hand lightly on the Birkin, like she was staking a claim. "You should try coach," she added, loud enough for the nearby passengers to hear. Someone chuckled under their breath. A man in 1B looked up from his laptop. The energy shifted. The room took sides without saying a word. The insult wasn't about the seat. It never is. It was about skin, class, power, what people assume when they think they already know who you are. What Blair Wyndham didn't know was that Everett Langston wasn't just a passenger. He was the CEO of Clear Sky Composites, the company that built the carbon frame for the very aircraft she was sitting in. And more than that, he was also the chairman of Ethic Air Index, the ethics compliance network used by 9 European airports to decide whether a plane could even land. A young flight attendant approached. Clara. Her smile was tight, nervous. She'd sensed something was off. "Is everything all right here?" she asked. Before Everett could respond, Blair turned to her, voice rising. "Yes, this gentleman is refusing to respect boundaries. I don't feel safe with him standing over me like this." There it was again, weaponized language, the tone of a woman who'd never been told no in her life. Clara blinked, visibly uncomfortable. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" Everett handed it over calmly. Clara looked. Her eyes flicked upward. She swallowed. "Thank you, Mr. Langston. That's correct." She turned to Blair, but before she could say a word, Blair escalated. "I'm asking for him to be removed, immediately." Phones came up, discreet but active. The tension in the cabin thickened like fog before a storm. Clara hesitated. Then she offered that classic airline solution, what they say when they're trying to make the optics easier. "Mr. Langston, would you mind stepping into the jet bridge for just a moment while we clear this up?" Everett's jaw barely moved. "I mind," he said simply. "But I'll go." He picked up his briefcase, turned without fuss, and stepped into the sterile, white-lit jet bridge. Behind him, Blair leaned back into her seat with the satisfaction of a queen who defended her throne. She lifted her phone, took a picture of the Birkin, and typed out a caption. "Some people don't know their place. Such that first-class life." What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that Everett Langston owned the system her flight needed to land. Literally. He stepped a few paces down the bridge, pulled out his phone, sleek, matte black, unbranded. Just one screen, one button. He pressed and held. The line connected immediately. "Langston," he said, soft but firm. "Protocol Veritas, Level 2, Flag Zurich, Lion, Vienna, Munich. You know what to do." "Understood," came the reply. 3 words, 3 minutes. By the time the system finished its sweep, 4 airports would suspend their inbound operations with Regalis Airways, and $880 million in ESG funding tied to the airline's ethics compliance? Gone. Back in the cabin, someone leaned across the aisle to whisper to their seatmate, "Isn't that Langston from Clear Sky?" A woman checked her phone. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, that is him." And just like that, the flight wasn't taking off. The tide was turning. And Blair? She was sitting in the middle of a storm she never saw coming. From the moment Everett stepped off the plane and into the jet bridge, everything slowed down. Not in reality, but in his mind. He'd always seen the world in systems, people focused on events. He watched patterns. And this wasn't just an incident. This was a pattern, one that had replayed in different forms throughout his life. In boardrooms, in lounges, in first-class cabins, and every time, someone assumed. The jet bridge was quiet, chilled by the early morning air that drifted in from the terminal's underbelly. Behind him, the cabin doors were sealed shut again, cutting him off from the murmurs, the smirks, the silent witnesses. He didn't need to look back. Everett tapped a second button on his phone. A secure window opened. Ethic Air Command Hub. Live access user. E. Langston. Chairman Protocol Tier 1. 4 green dots blinked in a neat row. Zurich, Lyon, Vienna, Munich. Then one command line. Initiating live ethics risk sweep. Priority Flight 2069, Regalis Airways. Trigger, Tier 2. Conduct violation, passenger discrimination, escalated removal request. The interface wasn't designed to look dramatic. There were no blinking warnings, no sirens, just smooth data. Efficient, quiet, like Everett. Inside the cabin, Blair crossed her legs, glanced at the flight attendant with an expression that said, "You may go now," and opened Instagram. The seat next to her remained empty, her bag lounging like royalty. She felt victorious, but the atmosphere in the cabin had shifted. People weren't smiling at her anymore. In fact, they weren't even making eye contact. A few passengers whispered. One man in row 3 leaned toward his wife, his voice low but pointed. "You sure that wasn't Everett Langston? The aerospace guy?" His wife frowned, confused. Then her eyes widened. She pulled out her phone and started typing. 2 rows back, a businesswoman in a gray blazer was already scrolling LinkedIn. There he was. Dr. Everett Langston, CEO, Clear Sky Composites. Developer of carbon micro-lattice tech used in 38% of all commercial aircraft in Western Europe. Lead architect of Ethic Air Index, the system that decided whether your airline got to land in Zurich or didn't. She looked up, stunned. "Oh my God," she murmured. Her seatmate turned. "What?" "That guy. The one she got kicked off? He's not just some businessman. He basically built the compliance system this airline uses." The words echoed like a whisper of karma. Back on the ground in Geneva, inside the Clear Sky Ethics Ops Center, Protocol Veritas triggered full diagnostic monitoring. On the main screen, A live flag appeared over Regalis Airways. Ethics status. Under review. Tier 2. Incident active. Estimated impact. 880 million ESG. Linked capital exposure. 4 airport nodes flagged. Zurich, Lyon, Vienna, Munich. Public media chatter. Surge detected. Keyword: Langston plus Regalis. Across 4 European hubs, systems began to slow. Not by accident, but by design. Not locked, not down, but uncertain. And in aviation, uncertainty is a red light. Back on Flight 2069, Clara, the young attendant, stood frozen near the galley, hands clasped nervously. She'd seen passengers complain before. She'd seen snobbery, rudeness, entitlement. But this had a different weight. She opened the staff tablet. A new alert had popped up. Passenger of interest, E. Langston, flagged Tier 1 identity, Ethic Air Chair, CEO, Clear Sky Composites, full protocol sweep in progress. She looked up sharply, heart thudding. Michael, the lead purser, appeared at her side. "You saw it too?" she whispered. He nodded grimly. "We need to get the captain." In the cockpit, Captain Romer, a seasoned Swiss-German pilot with 20 years' experience, was on a direct line with operations. His eyes narrowed as the update came through. "Repeat that," he said. On the other end, the Regalis ops manager was nearly hyperventilating. "He's Everett Langston. He owns the tech in our aircraft. He chairs the council that rates our ethical compliance. Sir, we just removed the man who controls our landing clearance for 4 major airports." Romer didn't curse. He didn't panic, but his jaw tightened. "I need to speak with the passenger," he said. "Now." Back in the jet bridge, Everett checked his phone again. Phase 1. Complete internal logs pulled passenger manifest cross-referenced ESG-linked capital at risk flagged public data analysis. Trending. Phase 2. Greenlit. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. Meanwhile, in a Regalis executive conference room in Frankfurt, the chief risk officer, the head of corporate ethics, and the VP of operations were on a call none of them wanted to be on. The screen read, "Critical risk. Ethic Index Status Pending Trigger, Passenger Conduct, CEO Removal, Multi-Node System Response." One executive muttered, "If Langston blacklists us from Ethic Air, our Zurich gate contract evaporates." Another snapped, "Lyon, Vienna, and Munich are tied to that compliance score. If we're dropped below 85, we lose clearance in 4 cities." And the worst part? The press didn't even know yet, but the markets would in hours. Back in the cabin, Blair was starting to notice the silence. No one was smiling. The attendant, Clara, hadn't returned. The older man in 3A was now openly filming her, and the couple across the aisle kept looking at her like they knew something she didn't. Her phone buzzed. A DM from someone she didn't know. "You might want to Google the guy you just kicked off the plane. Langston. Everett Langston." She frowned. She typed it in and froze. The screen filled with headlines. "The Quiet Titan of Aerospace. Meet the man who writes the rules. Airlines must follow. Everett Langston's Ethic Air Index, redefining integrity in aviation." Her stomach dropped. Captain Romer stepped into the cabin. He didn't smile, didn't explain, just walked straight to her row. "Miss Wyndham," he said evenly, "we're resolving a critical systems issue related to this flight. For now, please remain seated and do not engage with the other passengers." Blair opened her mouth, but he was already walking away. Outside the aircraft, Everett checked his phone one last time. A new alert. Zurich. Hold protocol activated. Regalis gate access suspended. Vienna, Lyon, Munich. Pending gate status review. Investor. Pullback. 880 m ESG. Capital risk flagged across 3 markets. He adjusted his cufflink, put his phone away, and waited. He designed Protocol Veritas for moments exactly like this. Not for revenge, for reckoning. Inside the cabin, someone whispered, "He's not just a CEO. He's the one who decides if this plane can land." And Blair? For the first time, she felt something she didn't know how to process. Irrelevance. The moment Flight 2069 missed its assigned pushback window at Charles de Gaulle, a silent ripple moved across European airspace. Technically, delays happened all the time, but this wasn't weather. This wasn't a mechanical glitch. This was something different, something no one could quite explain. Yet. Inside the Regalis Airways HQ in Frankfurt, the chief of operations, Marla Beck, stared at the real-time ops screen. It was blinking red across 4 separate airports. Ethic Air Index. Zurich, flagged. Lyon, under review. Vienna, suspended. Munich, flagged. Marla's phone buzzed non-stop. "Get me someone from Geneva. I want Langston's office on the line," she barked, but the assistant on the other end was pale, sweating. "We already tried. Their board has gone into silent protocol." Marla froze. No PR recovery, no back-channel apology, no executive groveling hotline. Langston wasn't playing defense, he was playing sovereign. Meanwhile, in the cabin, time had slowed to a crawl. Passengers were restless. Tensions buzzed just beneath the surface. Blair's fingers shook slightly as she held her phone. Her Twitter feed was spiraling. The video someone took, the one where she said, "He should try Coach," had been posted and reposted and reposted again. Within 15 minutes, it was trending on French, German, and Swiss social media feeds with the hashtag Langston Effect, #designer bag diplomacy, #grounded by entitlement. She tried to report it, block it, bury it. But the internet wasn't letting go. 2 rows back, Helen Donovan, a retired judge from New York, leaned toward her husband. "Did you see how calm he was?" she whispered. Her husband nodded. Didn't raise his voice. Didn't even frown. That kind of silence. It's not weakness. It's power. Helen narrowed her eyes toward Blair, who now looked very, very small. Meanwhile, in a control room in Geneva, the Clear Sky Ethics Ops team was reviewing the incident packet. The AI had already analyzed cabin footage, facial recognition heat maps, and tone variants across the voices recorded. Analysis. Langston. Calm, unprovoked. Blair Wyndham. Elevated volume, racially coded language. Flight attendant, deferred authority. Cabin crew, passive compliance. The system flagged it as a Class 2 bias incident, with a probable systemic risk score of 92%. It was no longer just about Blair. It was now about how Regalis responded, or failed to. Back in the cockpit, Captain Romer was flipping through printed protocol documents, not because he needed to, he knew them by heart, but because it calmed him. The co-pilot turned to him. "Do we offload the passenger?" she asked quietly. Romer shook his head. "No, not yet." "Then what do we do?" He closed the folder, looked through the cabin door's small window at Everett still standing by the jet bridge. "We wait. He's not asking for anything, which means everything he needs is already in motion." In the airport terminal, Everett remained still. A manager had tried to apologize, stammering something about a miscommunication. Everett had listened politely, said nothing, gave no eye contact, no comment, no reaction. He simply stood with one hand in his pocket, the other holding his phone by his side. The message was clear. This was not a negotiation. At that moment, the Zurich Airport Authority released a memo internally. Effective immediately, Regalis Airways Flight 2069 is to be held at origin pending formal ethics compliance confirmation. Do not assign replacement gate until review is complete. At Lyon, the gate rotation software removed Regalis Airways from the evening arrivals sequence. At Vienna, ESG compliance-linked funding systems triggered a pause on Regalis's sustainable route benefits. At Munich, Ethics watchdogs initiated an emergency audit. And just like that, a $880 million network started unraveling. Back on the plane, Clara returned from the cockpit, her face pale, composed. She walked to Everett's seat, still empty, and gently removed the Birkin bag. Blair flinched. "Excuse me." Clara didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "This seat is officially reassigned to its original holder, by direct request from the captain." Blair blinked. "What do you mean? Reassigned?" Clara didn't answer. She walked away, bag in hand, and handed it to Blair's assistant in the aisle. There was no room for a scene. Not now. The overhead speakers dinged. "This is your captain speaking. We'll be experiencing a brief delay due to ongoing operational logistics. We appreciate your patience." But the passengers weren't dumb. They'd all read the headlines. They'd all seen the man in the jet bridge. They knew what was really going on. Blair slowly sank back in her seat. No longer victorious, no longer smug, just exposed. 10 rows back, a young black woman in a blazer quietly texted her sister. He didn't even have to say anything. The whole industry moved for him. Her sister responded, "That's how power's supposed to look." In Geneva, an emergency meeting was called between Clear Sky, the European Aviation ESG Council, and airport gate regulators. It was no longer just about one flight. This was a test case, a symbol. Could the system defend dignity in real time? Could power be used to quietly dismantle harm, without violence, without screaming, without lawsuits? Could one moment of grace, one man refusing to play the game, redefine the rules? Blair refreshed her phone again. New headline: CEO who was kicked from seat now freezes 800 ANILMs in airline access. No statement yet. Another one: Langston moves in silence, grounds flights in 4 countries. A third: flight attendant asked him to step off. He took the industry with him. She felt her ears ringing. Suddenly, it wasn't about who had the louder voice. It was about who didn't need to speak at all. Back at Charles de Gaulle, Everett finally moved. He stepped back toward the cabin. Clara greeted him at the door. "Sir, your seat is ready, ma'am," she said, voice steadier than before. Everett gave her a brief nod and entered. The cabin fell utterly silent. All eyes on him, but he didn't look left or right. He walked to 2A, sat down. Buckle clicked, briefcase placed gently at his feet. No fanfare, no anger, just restored order. By the time Flight 2069 finally pulled back from the gate, the cabin was silent, but it wasn't calm. Passengers were whispering. Phones were buzzing under tray tables. Even the flight attendants, normally confident, in control, were stiff, alert, unnerved. And seated quietly in 2A, Dr. Everett Langston didn't look angry. He looked inevitable. In the forward galley, Clara stood facing the captain's update message flashing on the crew display. Alert. Ethics review protocol. External systems triggered. Do not engage further with 2A. Hold position. Her hands trembled slightly. She hadn't even known a code like that existed. What the hell was external systems triggered? Meanwhile, in the back row of first, Blair Wyndham was unraveling. Her assistant leaned toward her. "Blair, the Foundation Board group chat is blowing up." Blair barely blinked. "Which one?" "The main one. And the Paris circle too. Sir Bentley just messaged, effective immediately, your family's voting privileges are suspended pending inquiry." Blair's throat dried. "Did they say why?" The assistant hesitated, then turned the phone screen toward her. There it was, a screenshot of the cabin incident. Her face, her words, captured, circulated, attached to a single phrase. They didn't know who he was. Across the aisle, Helen Donovan, the retired federal judge, whispered to her husband. "They thought he was just a black man in a suit." Her husband responded, "Turns out, he owns the suit factory, the distribution chain, and the ethics code your flight depends on. At Regala's headquarters, Marla Beck was pacing like a caged animal. The chief risk officer handed her a printout. 880 million in ESG-linked investments officially withdrawn. Zurich, Vienna, Lyon, and Munich. All suspended access. S&P ESG compliance rating downgraded to watch list. Langston flagged us without saying a word, she muttered. The risk officer sighed. And the worst part? It's sticking. No one's challenging him. They're all backing away like he's radioactive. Marla turned slowly toward the screen. A headline was looping on Bloomberg Europe. Ethic Air founder flags airline. Fallout reverberates across 4 countries. Back on the plane, Captain Romer stepped out of the cockpit briefly, something he rarely did mid-climb. He made his way up the aisle, his face grave. He paused beside Everett's seat. "Sir, just wanted to personally say, we're aware of what happened, and on behalf of this flight, I'm sorry." Everett looked up, calm. "You have nothing to apologize for, Captain." Romer nodded slowly, then added quietly, "I've flown for 27 years. Never seen a plane change direction without even leaving the ground." Everett gave a small smile. "Sometimes, the plane isn't what needs to move." 1 hour later, in the executive boardroom of Clear Sky Aviation Ethics Council, a full emergency panel had been called. Screens showed real-time risk metrics. ESG withdrawal, airport access suspended, passenger incident class 2, media sensitivity, red CEO identity, verified. Everett Langston, architect of Ethic Air Index. The chairwoman leaned forward. "Is it true that he holds final override access to the ethics compliance dashboard?" The tech advisor nodded gravely. "He doesn't just have access. He built the architecture. What he triggered today wasn't a report. It was an audit-level flag." One board member whistled under his breath. "Blair Wyndham just poked a man who built the fences." Back in the cabin, Blair sat hunched in her seat, scrolling endlessly. Her PR manager had finally responded. "No comment, no press release, no apology yet. Sit still." But it was too late. One of the donors from her family's philanthropy board had posted a personal statement. "We expect better from those who represent our mission. Until accountability is demonstrated, we are halting all co-sponsored grants involving Blair Wyndham." Her face drained. Not just humiliation now, consequence. In contrast, Everett was typing quietly into his phone. The screen showed Ethic Air Central Dashboard Ethics Flag. Active duration, 72 hours, affected entities. Regalis Airways plus affiliates, ESG compliance review. Initiated AI sentiment monitoring. On a secondary tab opened, Passenger Behavioral Pattern Index. Flagged individual. Blair Wyndham Ethics Tier. Reassessment required cross-linked board roles. 3 status. Under review. He paused, then tapped one final button. Submit ethics packet to Core Consortium Registry. That single click would ripple across 7 international philanthropy accreditation boards by morning. Everett put his phone away. No expression. In first class, a younger black woman across the aisle leaned toward him. "I just wanted to say, thank you," she said, quietly. Everett met her gaze gently. "Thank me?" "For not yelling, for not stooping, for showing people there's another way." Everett nodded. "There always is." Then she added, "Do you think they'll ever change?" He looked ahead, thoughtful. "They will. Because eventually, silence becomes too loud to ignore." 30,000 feet below, Regalis's legal team was scrambling to assess damage. But there was one memo they couldn't stop. Ethic Air Index Official Statement. Regalis Airways has failed to meet the passenger equity threshold as defined by Article 4, Section 12. Effective immediately, the airline is flagged non-compliant for 72 hours. ESG financial systems linked to this rating are advised to take caution. The press had already gotten it, and so had the funders. Back in the sky, Everett closed his eyes. reclining slightly. It wasn't about revenge. It was about integrity, about not having to explain your worth, about not having to shout to be heard, about a system that finally moved for the quiet ones. The people like him, the people who'd been told over and over that their seat was taken. But today, he didn't just get his seat back, he redefined the gate. The flight had been in the air for just under 2 hours when the cabin lights dimmed slightly, casting a soft blue glow across first class. Passengers who earlier had whispered now sat in reflective silence. Even Blair Wyndham, once the center of attention, seemed to disappear into her seat, as if trying to merge with the leather. But the silence wasn't peace. It was power moving. In seat 2A, Everett Langston sat calm, reviewing the flood of updates on his tablet. The Ethicair server had flagged 9 additional anomalies linked to Regalis Airways, cases buried in complaint logs, never escalated. Cabin profiling, passenger displacement, suspicious seating swaps. The airline had a pattern, and now it was exposed. He tapped into the encrypted channel for the Ethicair Ethics Risk Alliance, a closed forum between regulators, ESG funds, and ethics tech platforms. Dozens of real-time reactions lit up. Langston moved faster than a federal audit. 4 airports are pulling allocation tables, slot bidding frozen. This will be the new benchmark. No one's safe if they fail the dignity threshold. One message stood out. If Everett hadn't pulled the lever today, how many more would have been erased quietly? He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Meanwhile, in the flight deck, Captain Romer spoke to ground control out of Geneva, requesting ethics routing reauthorization for landing protocol compliance. The air traffic officer paused, checking the system. Confirmed. You're clear, though, side note, quite the wake you've left down here. The captain chuckled, then added with dry honesty, I think the wake's just beginning. Back in the cabin, a flight attendant approached Everett, this time with care and something deeper in her eyes. Dr. Langston, she said softly, placing a glass of water beside him. We didn't know. I didn't know. He looked up, measured, but not cruel. It shouldn't take knowing someone's title to treat them with basic dignity. She nodded. There was nothing to say, but then she leaned closer, whispering, We just got a crew-wide bulletin. The airline is grounding all inbound comms. Something's happening. She was right. At that very moment, in a Zurich press room, a journalist named Thomas Arendt stood before a wall of cameras, holding a tablet with still frames from the now viral video. Blair pointing toward Everett, and the headline, Man denied seat for passenger's handbag. Turns out he owns the ethics system that governs their airline. Thomas turned to the cameras. This isn't just about a seat. It's about a system. And this man didn't yell. He didn't demand. He simply moved the world with a line of code and 3 minutes of silence. Back on the plane, Blair's phone pinged again. She didn't want to look, but curiosity broke her. It was a voice memo from her mother. You may have just cost us the Board of Global Heritage. I told you to learn the room before opening your mouth. You embarrassed the family name. Blair's hand trembled. Her entire life had been status, pedigree, legacy. But in this moment, it felt like all she had left was a handbag. She looked at Everett. Not a word had come from him. He hadn't once raised his voice. He hadn't retaliated. He had simply revealed the architecture of consequence and watched her walk into it willingly. Elsewhere in first class, a middle-aged Indian businessman leaned toward his wife. He's making history right now. Who? She whispered. The man in 2A. He's rewriting how airlines will treat people moving forward. Watch. By next quarter, every ESG fund will require what he just did. A few rows back, a college-aged white student, clearly on a business scholarship, typed furiously on his laptop. He titled the blog post, Flight 2069 and the Day Quiet Power Changed Everything. His opening line? The seat wasn't about luxury. It was about whether society sees you as deserving of dignity before asking who you are. Meanwhile, back on the ground, At Langston Group headquarters in Manhattan, Everett's executive assistant June Harmon was already moving. She had sent ethics compliance notices to 23 Regalis affiliates, filed requests with the FAA to open an industry-wide passenger dignity review, and activated what they called the Dignity Protocol Draft, a long-dormant framework Everett had designed years ago but never released. Until now. She clicked send. The document, a 48-page ethics infrastructure for airline behavior and accountability, was now in the hands of the Senate Aviation Oversight Committee, ESG fund leaders, and all 7 airports in the Fair Sky Alliance. Back on board, the flight began its descent into Geneva. Everett looked out the window. Clouds parted slowly, the runway glinting far below. He reflected not on the incident, but on the years it had taken to reach this point. The doors slammed in his face. The meetings where his ideas were stolen. The assumptions made about him in rooms he now chaired. But today, in silence, with no badge, no nameplate, no fanfare, he had rewritten the rules, and no one even saw it coming. As the wheels touched down, a soft cheer rose from the back cabin, not because of the landing, because word had just spread. Regalis Airways stock had dropped 11% mid-flight, a ripple of poetic justice. No screaming, no lawsuits, just quiet consequence. Blair remained seated long after everyone else stood. She didn't know how to walk off this flight, but when Everett passed her row, he paused, not out of spite, not for revenge, just one glance. Then he said softly, "I hope this moment teaches you what a seat can mean," and walked away. It wasn't even sunrise in New York when the email landed. Subject line: Ethics Breach Class A, Regalis Airways, Passenger Incident, Final Flagging Notice. Sent from Ethic Air Compliance Corps to FAA Oversight Division, European Airport Consortium. Top 14 ESG lenders, no PR filters, no delays. And the moment it hit inboxes, the impact began. At 7:03 a.m. Geneva time, Everett Langston stepped off the plane. No security escort, no media crew, just a calm walk through the jet bridge. But behind him, the world was shifting. In Frankfurt, a morning analyst call started with, "Did anyone review the Langston memo yet?" By 7:08, Zurich Airport's CEO sent a directive. "Suspend all Regalis intake until we get clarity. I don't want that ethics flag touching our April numbers." At 7:11, the ESG fund liaison for Société Générale simply wrote, "Pull $300 until further notice." It was a cascade, and Everett had pushed the first tile. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, at the skyscraper headquarters of Langston Group, Everett's assistant June Harmon was already at her desk. Phone in one hand, tablet in the other, she coordinated 3 moving fronts. FAA Review Board request for an emergency hearing. Ethics Training Consortium requesting Langston's Dignity Protocol Draft for immediate sector-wide distribution. A joint letter from 12 CEOs asking for a call with Everett, this time not to challenge, but to align. She didn't need to ask permission. She knew the playbook. Everett never starts fights, but he finishes frameworks. Across the ocean, Regalis Airways CEO Marla Beck was losing control. The boardroom was chaos. "What do you mean 4 airports aren't accepting us? What do you mean we lost ESG clearance for Q3? Why didn't anyone flag this Langston guy earlier?" A young intern finally whispered, "We didn't think the man in 2A was Langston." By mid-morning, the Wall Street Journal, Reuters, and Financial Times had all released front-page digital alerts. Langston flags airline, 880 MLNs withdrawn in under 3 hours. Ethic Air Index flexes global muscle. Who's next? The quiet CEO who grounded a system without saying a word. And buried in those articles was one quote Everett had written 3 years ago in an internal white paper. "Dignity isn't a perk, it's a precondition. Once tech can measure it, the world has no excuse." Now, the world wasn't just quoting it. They were coding it into policy. That afternoon, Everett sat alone in a quiet cafe near Geneva's Old Quarter. No press, no interviews, just a pot of strong tea and an email screen open on his tablet. Subject: Passenger Wyndham Incident. Formal apology and request for discussion. From Blair Wyndham's legal team. He didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, he opened a second draft. The internal policy memo he'd been holding for 18 months, meant for when the time was right. It was called the Langston Clause, Flight Equity and Passenger Dignity Framework. The core principle? Any commercial airline receiving ethics-linked capital must prove real-time dignity compliance in first class and economy boarding alike. He reread the sentence slowly. Today wasn't about revenge. It was about activation. By 4:00 p.m., 4 more airlines reached out requesting access to the Ethic Air Compliance Sandbox. We'd like to run simulations on our routes before getting flagged. Can we voluntarily pre-qualify for the Langston Clause before the quarter ends? We'd like to discuss a partnership on applying sentiment AI to crew training metrics. For once, the industry wasn't resisting. It was pursuing. At that same hour, Blair Wyndham stepped into her family's marble kitchen in Westport. Her mother was waiting, tight-lipped, holding a letter. The Wyndham Foundation Board voted, her mother said quietly. You've been removed from all leadership positions. Blair stood frozen. They can't. They did, her mother said flatly. And the worst part? You're the one who submitted the evidence, by opening your mouth. Later that evening, Everett took a private call with Dr. Safia Adan, director of the International Aviation Integrity Council. She'd known Everett since his early days in Berlin, when he was just another systems architect with a laptop full of ethical blueprints. Now he was building protocols the FAA would likely ratify. Safia said, "It's official. They're going to name it the Langston Protocol. You good with that?" Everett exhaled slowly. Only if it works. And by nightfall, headlines solidified what his quiet action had accomplished. 1 seat, 1 flag, 880 members frozen, and a system rewritten. No shouting, no confrontation, just an email, a protocol, and a man who built the rules everyone else now had to play by. By sunrise the next day, it wasn't just Regalis Airways feeling the heat. The entire aviation sector, from gate agents to Wall Street brokers, was trying to decode the ripple Everett Langston had sent through the system. But for Everett, this wasn't a ripple. It was the first calculated fault line of a system he knew had to crack open. At 7:43 a.m. CET, the European Airport Consortium convened a private virtual session. On the agenda, urgent ethical compliance review, immediate ramifications from Ethic Air flag level red. The head of Geneva operations opened the call. Langston just demonstrated that a single dignity protocol can move more capital than a PR scandal or an accident report. This isn't a PR crisis, another added. This is an infrastructure failure in our moral architecture. Across the screen, one airport director said what everyone was already thinking. If we don't voluntarily adopt Ethic Air compliance standards now, we'll be next. Meanwhile, back in New York, Everett sat in silence at his Langston Group office window, watching the sky shift shades over Manhattan. His phone buzzed quietly beside him. 12 missed calls, 7 new partnership requests, 3 interview invitations. He didn't answer any. Instead, he pulled up an internal document. Compliance Sync Gateway, Phase 2. It wasn't just a codebase. It was the operating system for the future of ethical travel, and it had just been pushed to the top of every CEO's inbox across the airline industry. Elsewhere, behind closed doors at Sky Delta Ventures, one of the largest ESG investment syndicates, 5 partners were debating their next move. If we don't align our ethics scoring model to Ethic Air, we'll lose board trust. Do we even have a dignity threshold clause in our aviation terms? Not yet. But we will by Friday. The decision came fast. 140 million in pending airline credit lines paused until ethics alignment could be proven. The verdict was no longer in Everett's hands. The market had spoken. At FAA headquarters in Washington, D.C., Administrator Judith Barrett reviewed the latest fallout report. 82 ethics flag alerts in 48 hours, 880 immune frozen. Regalis's Q2 projections down 19%. She turned to her deputy. Langston didn't just flag a passenger issue, he exposed a compliance vacuum at scale. She leaned back. Draft the memo. I want a national ethics charter named and filed by Monday. Pull Langston's protocol in full. Back in Geneva, Everett finally took a call from an old friend. Senator Ruth Klein, chair of the Senate Aviation Oversight Subcommittee. She didn't even say hello. It took a man being told he didn't deserve a seat to make this country look in the mirror. Everett chuckled dryly. Sometimes, mirrors crack before they show the truth. She got to the point. You'll testify next month. We're calling it the Passenger Dignity Hearings. And Langston, we want you to write the first clause. Later that afternoon, Everett sat with his lead engineer, Micah Cheng, at their Zurich satellite office. Micah was pulling up real-time system metrics. Look at this. Since yesterday, 29 airlines tried to ping our ethics test API. 6 failed instantly. Everett raised an eyebrow. You rate limit them. Nope. They rate limited themselves, too afraid to find out the truth. Everett turned back to the whiteboard behind him. He wrote one word in bold. Auditable dignity. Then circled it. That's what they fear most. Not us flagging them, but their passengers learning how they really operate. Micah nodded. Ready to push phase 3? Everett didn't blink. Let's rewrite the sky. By evening, Everett took a short walk alone through the cobblestone alleys near the Rhone River. No cameras, no entourage. Just his thoughts and the sound of his own steps on history's floor. He didn't need a podium. He didn't need applause. He had something stronger. Undeniable traction. Because now, dignity was a data set, ethics was currency, and silence was no longer safe. Back in Manhattan, a confidential message was being drafted by Regalis Airways' legal counsel. Dear Mr. Langston, on behalf of our board, we extend our formal and personal apology. We ask for an opportunity to discuss potential alignment with your compliance sync framework and are open to structural reforms. The last line was bolded. We believe in turning accountability into action, but it was too late for belief. Now, only proof mattered. And Langston had already written the rules for that. As Everett boarded his return flight that night, a different airline this time, with a different energy, he noticed something small. The gate agent smiled with full eye contact. No hesitation. She scanned his boarding pass and said, No hesitation. Welcome aboard, Dr. Langston. Thank you for being with us today. No overcorrection. No fear. Just respect. He nodded once, grateful. And as he walked down the jet bridge, he passed a framed poster on the wall. It read, All passengers deserve dignity before we know their name. The room was full. Cameras, reporters, senators. But Everett Langston stood at the witness table like he was in his own boardroom. Behind him was the seal of the United States Senate Committee on Transportation Ethics. To his left sat union leaders. To his right, CEOs of 3 major airlines. None of them spoke. Because this hearing wasn't about them. It was about what Everett had revealed to the world, and what would happen next. Senator Ruth Klein opened the session with calm clarity. Today, we are not here to discuss a viral video. We are here because a single denied seat triggered a global chain reaction. $880 million withdrawn, 4 airports suspending operations, and the exposure of what we now recognize as a national dignity deficit in commercial aviation. The room was silent. Then she turned to Everett. Mr. Langston, you may begin. Everett didn't bring notes. He brought memory. On that day, I wasn't treated poorly because I was loud. I wasn't bumped because I broke rules. I was removed, dismissed, and diminished because I didn't look like someone who belonged in first class. He paused. But what they didn't know was, I helped design the ethics systems that decide whether their flight can even take off. That line landed like thunder in the chamber. Not dramatic, just true. He continued, voice steady. You've asked me here not because of who I am, but because of what happened when I said nothing. He gestured toward the stack of reports submitted to the committee. Ethic Air was built to be silent, objective, and final. It doesn't care what you look like. It only measures how you're treated. And last week, it flagged a system failure. I didn't call the airports. I didn't leak anything to the press. I just let the truth speak for itself, through the very infrastructure your agencies helped fund. Senator Klein leaned forward. Mr. Langston, what do you propose we do now? Everett looked straight at her. We hard-code dignity into the industry. He clicked a button. Behind him, a screen lit up. The Langston Protocol, a civilian ethics compliance framework for U.S. aviation. The room adjusted forward in their seats. Everett explained. The Langston Protocol is a real-time ethics feedback system. It's built on 3 principles. Visibility. Every passenger incident is recorded and ethically graded by independent compliance AI. Accountability. Airlines that drop below an ethics score of 78% lose access to federal clearance networks. Restorative action. Flagged behavior from crew or passengers triggers automatic investigation and mandatory training, not just firing. Then came the real bombshell. And starting next quarter, any airline that fails to meet the protocol will be delisted from all ESG investment indices globally. Murmurs in the chamber. Several CEOs turned pale. Everett added one more thing. This isn't a punishment. It's insurance. For dignity. If a flight can be grounded over weather, it should be grounded over racism. Senator Clyde Watson, a conservative from Texas, tried to push back. Mr. Langston, isn't this a bit extreme? Everett smiled politely. Extreme? Senator, in less than 72 hours, 4 international airports revoked Regalis's access. Not because I asked, but because their ethics systems were built to detect what your laws failed to name. He leaned slightly forward. What's extreme is letting a $32,000 purse hold more value than a human being's seat. The room fell silent again. After Everett concluded, the rest of the hearing turned into strategy. Senators asked, how quickly could the Langston Protocol be piloted at scale? What budget would FAA need for integration? Would airports be allowed to set their own ethics thresholds? Everett answered each question with calm, precise resolve. He wasn't there to sell it. He was there to finalize what he had already set in motion. When the hearing ended, cameras flashed. But Everett didn't linger. As he stepped into the hallway, reporters surged. Mr. Langston, do you have a comment on the airlines now asking for voluntary onboarding? Will there be lawsuits? What happens to Regalis next? He didn't stop, but he said this. The skies are no longer neutral. They either reflect equity or enable bias. And as of today, we've made that measurable. Later that evening, Everett returned home to his Harlem brownstone. He didn't go out, didn't answer his phone. Instead, he sat on the floor of his study, flipping through a photo album. One photo stood out. His father, a former baggage handler, grinning beside a young Everett in a pilot costume. Written underneath, one day, you'll be the one deciding where planes go. Everett whispered to himself, I guess today was that day. In the final hours of the night, news outlets ran the story with a single headline. Langston testifies. Congress moves to ratify nation's first airline ethics framework. Social media exploded, but on Reddit, a quiet post from a flight attendant went viral. I used to think the worst part of flying was the turbulence. Now I realize, the real turbulence is how we treat people when we think no one powerful is watching. Thank God Mr. Langston was. The media frenzy began like a spark. By morning, it was a full-blown inferno. From BBC to CNBC, Le Monde to South China Morning Post, the same question was plastered everywhere. How did a single bag and one man's silence cripple 4 airports in under 72 hours? But Everett Langston wasn't doing interviews. He wasn't on morning shows. He wasn't tweeting. He was watching, quietly. And the world was panicking. At Regalis Airways headquarters in London, chaos wasn't even the word anymore. Their stock had dropped 18% overnight. Internal Slack channels were frozen. Investors were demanding emergency meetings. One director whispered, "We've survived fuel scandals, data leaks, but we might not survive a purse." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. In one leaked video, Regalis's head of PR tried to calm the damage during an internal call. "We're drafting a statement. We'll emphasize diversity training, revised boarding protocols." A junior exec cut in. "Ma'am, we didn't just mess up. We triggered Langston's system. We got flagged. That's a digital black mark now. You think an apology fixes a compliance red flag in Europe?" No one had an answer. They all knew. Regalis hadn't just lost face. They'd lost certification power. Meanwhile, in Zurich, at the offices of Ethic Air Index, Everett reviewed the latest dashboard analytics. Green, yellow, red. He saw it all. One airline tried to bypass the audit protocol, automatically downgraded. Another attempted to silently remove flagged staff without reporting, suspended from future clearance. No press release, no lawsuit, just code and consequence. Everett turned to his executive assistant, Julia. "Push Phase 3 beta live." "Already done," she said. "Pilot programs at Lyon, Geneva, and JFK just activated real-time sentiment scanning." Everett didn't nod, didn't smile. "Then let's see what happens when people realize ethics has latency now." On the other side of the Atlantic, at a Black-owned tech investment roundtable in Atlanta, Everett's name came up again. This man just turned a silent insult into a global index recalibration. That's what you call soft power, strategic dignity. A younger entrepreneur chimed in. "What's wild is, he never raised his voice. He didn't post a video. He didn't even say anything." The oldest man at the table tapped his finger once. Exactly. Power doesn't yell. It just pulls the plug. In Washington, FAA administrators scrambled to keep up. They released a memo titled Preliminary Integration Timeline, Langston Protocol Ethics Sync, LPS. Translation: they were preparing to make Everett standards federal policy. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. "Why didn't we build this system? Why is a private executive running the moral backbone of our airways?" "Because," one assistant muttered, "no one else thought passenger treatment was infrastructure." Meanwhile, back in Harlem, Everett sat in the same leather chair his father once used. He watched as new headlines flashed on his tablet. "Langston declines CNN interview. No comment still means control. Passengers now checking ethics ratings like weather forecasts. #Langston effect becomes industry watchdog." He put the tablet down, sipped tea. Julia entered. "Request from Oxford to keynote at the Global Aviation Integrity Summit. Tell them no speeches, but I'll share the compliance flowchart if they're serious." And Regalis sent another letter. Everett didn't look up. "File it." Regalis's second letter was longer. It wasn't just an apology. It was a beg. "We are willing to implement full Langston protocol training and integrate Phase 2 ethics modeling into our executive operations. We respectfully request a neutral reevaluation." But Everett knew the game. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry they got caught by something they couldn't control. And that was the whole point of his design. Over in Vienna, airport officials made their move. Until Regalis restores full ethics clearance and meets dignity sync thresholds, all code share and gate privileges remain suspended. It wasn't just Everett anymore. It was an entire system reshaping itself in real time. On TikTok, a former flight attendant posted a stitched video of Everett silently walking past the gate agent that day. Overlaid text read, "When the quiet black man you kicked out of first class controls the skies you fly in, 20 million views, 300,000 comments, but Everett never saw it. He didn't need to, because he wasn't going viral. He was reprogramming consequence. As night fell, Everett took a call from an unexpected voice. Allison Wyndham, Blair's mother. The woman who watched her daughter weaponize entitlement over a handbag. She sounded different now. I didn't know who you were. I didn't raise her like that. I just want you to know Everett cut her off gently. I know who you are, and that's enough. Pause. Some things don't need fixing. They just need exposure. He hung up, kindly, quietly, like always. The world hadn't fully changed yet, but the systems had. And systems, once rewired, don't forget. It had been 21 days. Regalis Airways was still bleeding. No ESG investors, limited gate access, zero leverage in Europe. Passengers had started switching airlines. Flight crews were quitting quietly. And yet, Everett Langston had never spoken publicly about what happened that day on Gate B16. Until now. But not to the media, not to the Senate. To a group of 15 black high school students sitting in a circle inside the Reginald Lewis Foundation's Youth Leadership Hall in Harlem. He didn't wear a suit. No camera crew, no script. Just a gray sweater, dark jeans, and his quiet presence. One student finally asked what everyone was thinking. "Mr. Langston, when they kicked you out of first class like that, how did you not go off?" Everett exhaled. "Because I knew that seat didn't define me, but what came after, that was mine to define." Silence, deep, respectful. He stood up and walked to the whiteboard, drew a rectangle. "This was the seat they told me I couldn't have." Then he drew a wider box beneath it, like a platform. "This is what I built instead." They gave me a moment of disrespect. I gave them a system of accountability. The students didn't clap. They absorbed. Because they understood something now. It wasn't about a chair. It was about what people believe you deserve, and what you make undeniable anyway. Later that week, Everett finally issued his only public statement. It was a single sentence, published in the Financial Times, New York Times, and Le Figaro. "I do not seek apologies. I design systems where apologies are no longer necessary." Below it, no logo, no company name, just a watermark. Ethic Air Index, now implemented across 37 airports and 6 airline alliances. Meanwhile, Regalis tried one last maneuver. Their CEO, Mark Hawthorne, resigned. The board sent Everett a direct letter requesting external audit consultancy. He declined, not with arrogance, with clarity. "I'm not here to fix reputations. I'm here to make sure reputations are earned." At FAA headquarters, internal ethics briefings had been renamed Langston Readiness Sessions. One junior official joked, "If Everett ever takes a flight, every airport in the country's gonna clear the runways." They weren't wrong. Back in Harlem, Everett received a package. It was from Zurich Airport. Inside, a framed photograph of their ethics dashboard showing Regalis downgraded, time-stamped 3 minutes after the incident. A sticky note was attached. "Your silence rewired our systems. Thank you for not yelling. Just building." He placed it on his bookshelf, right next to a framed boarding pass. Flight RA-71C, Seat 3A, never used. Weeks later, Everett attended a quiet summit in Geneva, the International Council on Aviation Dignity. Not as a guest, as co-founder. He presented the first ever global ethics charter, the Passenger Integrity Treaty, requiring airlines to meet measurable dignity benchmarks to retain international flight licenses. Countries began signing. Some airlines protested. Everett simply said, "Fly how you want, but not over our airspace if you don't fly fair." On the flight back home, something small but poetic happened. As Everett approached the gate, the agent smiled nervously and said, "Dr. Langston, I just want you to know, this airline passed the latest Langston protocol check with a 94.2% ethics score." He nodded. "That's good to hear. She checked his boarding pass. Her voice softened. "I see you're in 3A. He looked up, smiled. "This time, I think I'll use it." When he took his seat, the man next to him, a white passenger in his 60s, looked over and said, "I saw what you did. The whole world did." Everett raised an eyebrow. "Did what?" The man smiled. "You reminded us that silence isn't weakness. It's when silence speaks through systems that it becomes justice." Back on the ground, Blair Wyndham's name quietly disappeared from the Wyndham Arts Initiative website. She wasn't removed publicly, but she was replaced privately by a young Haitian artist from Brooklyn. The board had shifted focus, now funding arts education in underserved communities. A press release explained, "We believe dignity isn't just a value, it's a policy." No one said Everett's name, but everyone felt his handprint on the change. In the final scene of Everett's story, at least this chapter, he stands alone on a rooftop in Harlem, looking out at the skyline. No monologue, no music, just a quiet moment. And then, the screen fades to black, with one final line. "Some seats are denied, but some men build new planes." Everett was 19, a sophomore at MIT, home for the summer. He wore a second-hand suit and carried a manila folder with his project, a prototype for thermal adaptive carbon fiber. He'd scheduled a meeting with a regional aviation supplier downtown. He thought it could land him an internship. Instead, he waited 43 minutes in the lobby, while 3 white interns were ushered in and out, all younger than him. When the receptionist finally glanced his way, she said flatly, "Maintenance entrance is through the back." He held out the folder. "I'm here to pitch a materials innovation. I had a 10 o'clock appointment with Mr. Drayton." She looked him up and down. "Do you have ID?" He never got the meeting. He walked home in the July heat, folder in hand, not a word spoken. That day, Everett wrote something in his journal. "If they won't open the door, I'll rewrite the building code." That was the first seed. 1992, MIT graduation. He walked the stage to receive his PhD in aeronautical engineering. Cum laude, multiple patents already filed. His father, a postal worker, wore his only suit and cried quietly in the 5th row. The dean said, "Dr. Langston will go far, probably somewhere Europe can appreciate what America overlooks." 1997, Geneva Clear Sky Composites launched out of a shared warehouse. 2 engineers and a vision. To create materials that didn't care what color your skin was, only how well you built them. Everett worked 16-hour days. He slept in the lab. He didn't go to parties, didn't chase cameras, he chased proof. By 2002, Clear Sky had landed its first contract with Skyspan International. By 2006, 31% of Airbus's internal framing used his material. But the racism? It traveled too. 2011, Lufthansa incident. Everett had boarded a flight to Tokyo. First class. Ticket confirmed. A white male passenger, upset about being seated beside him, asked the attendant to reassign the colored gentleman. Everett was silent. The flight attendant tried to accommodate the request, until a senior officer intervened. Everett didn't file a complaint. He filed a patent the next day instead. That same year, he began quietly investing in what would become Ethic Air Index, the compliance framework used by 9 major European airports today. 2015. The decision. By then, he had the money, the leverage, and the political access. He was invited to serve as an advisor to the International Aviation Standards Consortium. He declined. Instead, he told his team, "We're not asking for seats anymore. We're building the room where airlines apply for clearance." He hired coders, lawyers, behavioral scientists. They built an algorithm that tracked complaint patterns, passenger treatment scores, audio sentiment shifts in cabin crew recordings, and more. Everett didn't want revenge. He wanted a new metric: dignity as standard. Back in the present, Everett stood in front of his private archive in Geneva. He reached into a locked drawer, pulled out that same manila folder from 1986, still yellowed, still holding the blueprint for his first thermal adaptive fiber. He smiled, then slid it back into the drawer, not as a relic, as a reminder. That night, Julia, his executive assistant, knocked gently on his door. "Everett, Zurich just passed their passenger equity clause. It's in law now." He didn't say anything. She continued. "Also, the FAA scheduled a call. They want your approval on a draft version of the U.S. adaptation of the Langston Protocol." Still, no response. Julia added more softly. "Also, Blair Wyndham was accepted into the Wharton Ethics Program. Seems she switched majors." He finally looked up. "Isn't it interesting," he said, "how systems make people change, more than speeches ever could?" Later, he walked alone to the rooftop garden. Geneva sparkled below. He took a deep breath, not of pride, but of completion. The young man from Baltimore no longer needed to yell or explain or perform. He had done something bigger. He had turned a lifetime of silent wounds into a network of accountable infrastructure. He sat on the garden bench, checked his email one last time. A message blinked. From Heathrow International Ethics Board. Subject: requesting immediate onboarding to Ethic Air System. Full compliance. No conditions. He smiled faintly, not as victory, but as vindication without noise. It had been 6 months since the incident on Flight 716. Most of the world had moved on, but the airline industry hadn't. Not after what Everett Langston had done, or rather, activated. Zurich, Geneva, Amsterdam, Toronto, Boston, 6 airports, all members of the Blue Axis Alliance, all now fully synced to the Ethic Air Index, his system. Their new passenger policy was simple: ethics before altitude. One flag from Ethic Air, your boarding gate disappeared from their system. No appeal, no delay, just silence and consequences. The airline that once denied Everett a seat was still flying, but limping. ESG funding pulled, public trust fractured, board shaken. 4 of its strategic airport partners terminated access contracts. A quiet but devastating 880 Meller freeze across their carbon material supply chain. They never officially apologized. They didn't need to. Their books did. In New York, at the Hudson Center, the annual Global Aviation Ethics Forum was in full swing. Everett stood backstage, minutes before delivering the closing keynote. Julia whispered behind him, checking her tablet. "We have 31 CEOs in the room, 4 senators, FAA, EU ethics observers, and Delta's legal team." Everett smiled softly. "Perfect. No better time to show them the future." He stepped on stage. No flash, no theatrics, only calm. He opened with a single image, a blurred still frame from a phone video. The moment Blair Wyndham pointed at him and said, "This seat's not for people like you." No audio, just the freeze frame. The entire room went silent. Then he turned to the crowd and said, "That moment cost $880 million. Not because I made a scene, but because I built a standard." He clicked again. Next slide. A dashboard showing live compliance scores of airlines across 7 countries. Color-coded, some in green, some flashing yellow, one in red. Regalis Airways. This is the Ethic Air Index. It doesn't measure apologies. It measures behavior, at scale. A voice in the back, an older executive from Eurosky, raised a question. "But what gives you the right to govern ethics? You're a private actor." Everett didn't flinch. "That's the wrong question. The right one is, what gave airlines the right to treat dignity as optional? Until now." As the room digested his words, Julia activated the final slide. The Global Passenger Equity Accord. A new framework, co-authored by Everett, endorsed by 11 international regulatory bodies, backed by 5 ESG investment consortia. Airlines that refused to sign would see real-time delisting from Ethic Air-compliant airports. Suddenly, every exec in that room wanted a pen. Blair Windham had not spoken to the press since the incident. She'd quietly withdrawn from public boards, resigned from 3 arts councils, and enrolled in a postgraduate ethics program at a small college in Vermont. Some said it was rebranding. Others thought it was shame. But those close to her said something had cracked inside her, and not in a cruel way. She'd started listening. In a paper she submitted that spring titled, "The Seat I Took That Wasn't Mine," Blair wrote, "Power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it's the calmest man on the plane, the one who doesn't yell when humiliated, the one who rebuilds the air around you." It was published in the Journal of Applied Ethics. Everett never responded publicly, but Julia printed it out, highlighted a line, and left it on his desk. He read it, smiled, then filed it in a drawer marked Unfinished Conversations. 2 weeks later, Everett met with the FAA and DOT in a closed-door ethics summit. He was offered a formal federal role to lead passenger protection and equity compliance. He politely declined. "I don't want to govern. I want to build systems that make governance automatic." Instead, he offered them something else, a full open-source license of the Ethic Air Index, free for all national airports. On one condition, adopt it as is. No edits, no lobbying, no delays. 72 hours later, they signed. In a small ceremony in Harlem, the Reginald Lewis Foundation renamed their tech lab the Everett Langston Flight Ethics Innovation Center. Everett didn't make a speech. He watched the ribbon cutting from the back, then quietly slipped out. Outside, a young boy tugged his sleeve. "Mister, you really made them freeze all that money?" Everett knelt, smiled. "I made them freeze the way they think. The money just followed." 6 months ago, he'd stood alone at Gate B16, disrespected. Now, the gate had a new sign above it, Langston Certified Airline Partner. Below it, a screen scrolled real-time Ethic Air ratings for the next 5 boarding flights. A mother pointed at it and whispered to her son, "That's how you know if it's safe to fly. Not just the plane, but the people." Everett boarded a flight from Zurich to DC. This time, no tension, no stares. The agent smiled, recognizing him. "Mr. Langston, we upgraded your seat." He chuckled. "That's ironic." She tilted her head. "Why's that?" "Because I don't fly for the seat anymore. I fly to see how the world's learning." He stepped into first class. Passengers nodded at him, not out of fear, but respect. He sat in 3A, same seat, same row, but a completely different air. They denied him a seat, so he built the runway. And now we want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone being denied dignity just because of how they looked, dressed, or spoke? Tell us where you're watching from, and if a moment like that ever made you want to stand up, or build something bigger like Everett did. We read every comment, and sometimes the quietest stories echo the loudest.